on the pursuit of power for its own sake is the outline. Doing good, what it is, people with different means, so different position to do good. So is acquiring better means only instrumental to do more good? But I said it's not the case, because there's something intrinsically valuable to liberty, power, impact, absolutely how it is measured along 2 dimensions. But then absolute impact is not the only factor that contributes to individual altruism, charity, and in the end, having said all this, how power is instrumentally valuable and intrinsically valuable, I demonstrate an intrinsic pursuit of the wrong kind of power. So doing good in solidarity, through mutual respect, the group will constitute a society that cooperates, in which members of the society cooperate with one another. So solidarity, obligate. Respect, that's a kind of utilitarianism that, yeah, we maximize welfare, but it's the welfare maximization, it's not a mere consequentialism that I will say a little bit more. And there are people with different capacity to do good, with different possibility relative to that person and capability. That's when people have different possibility of possibilities. So one is possible to acquire certain capacity to learn certain skill and be empowered with a certain means. And these are the things we think about when we do think about differences in doing good. The utilitarian obligation to maximize welfare is restricted with rationality, at least because knowledge of obligation, I think, constitute reason, and reason justifies a decision. But to use some formal understanding, accessibility, there's metaphysical accessibility, whether at a certain time what one can do, and deontic necessity, what one must do, and in the end, epistemic necessity, what one knows. So there are situations in which one can do something that one may not do or must do, and some might not know that one must do those things. So this makes a difference to liability. And in a collective, people with different power, they thus have different liability. And that distribution of liability, you can think in terms of omitting the right act, someone that's nearby, a bystander, is more liable than someone far away that omitted the same act, because that faraway person is not in a position to help, but those nearby are. But then is increasing metaphysical accessibilities, increasing control over the world, is that only instrumental to doing good? I think in terms of the following phenomena. So want, self-determination, we are free to determine our life goal, what we want to do in our life. And of course, most people would want health. So there are basic needs. So the necessary means, that's what we need to pursue our self-determining goal. But sometimes what we need are not what we can do. And if we can substantiate with the corresponding power, then we can do what we want to do, because we have what we need. But even when we have what we need and we can do what we want to do, there's still the step short of having the will to make the decision to. So want and intention, these are two things, but it is still one step short, even if we want to do something that now we can, because we need. So we need the will to do a certain thing. But so it is when one can do more things, is that the only reason, the betterness in terms of having more power, is that only about the good that one can do? No, I think we can illustrate with the following. So liberty, if it is the freedom to do the right thing, given the same right act, having more alternatives, I think it's a better world in which one makes the same decision with more alternatives, especially in making the right decision, because, well, especially when if we don't have the free will, that we can't do anything immoral, that we are metaphysically necessitated to do only the right thing. It makes a difference whether our achievement is praiseworthy, depending on the alternatives, especially the alternatives of failing, or the alternatives failing morally, or even failing prudentially. So freedom, I understand it as the independent variables in a decision, and a decision is a deontic input that is the deontic output, the output that's input into the deontic system recursively through agency, that's the self-determination that I've been talking about. Of course, there's a difference between determining our want for our whole life or at a certain time, but at least given the value of liberty, there's a liberal perfectionism that obligates liberty maximization, with which we can understand the wrongness of drug addiction, because even if you wanted to take drugs and you have unlimited supply, in the future, you would be taking drugs with no alternatives. There's no choice but to take drugs, and that decrease in liberty would have explained the wrongness of drug addiction. Okay, so liberty is constituted by the freedom to do the right thing. Of course, sometimes we're limited to do the right thing. Sometimes we don't, even if we are not limited, we don't have the capacity. Given that we have both the freedom and the capacity, and the corresponding power, so we want to measure the impact. So there are two dimensions. One is effectiveness, same resources, better outcomes. So given the same manpower, whether a more effective administrator would have the better outcome, and efficiency. So given that there's a certain outcome that we want to achieve, a better, more efficient administrator would need less resources to achieve that outcome. So the performance of the administrator is measured by his impact, and of course that indicates his administrative competence. So when we think about all humanity administering the world, there's the issue of charity, because not everyone has the same power. Depending on one's personal contribution, one can donate money. Let's say that's, well, richer people, they're donating the same amount of money with the same impact. It's easier for them. So I think charity, how charitable one person is proportional to the economic power. If the charitable act is in terms of monetary donation, for all humanity, humanity not only obligates respect, but also love maximization, because the same happiness, if the happier person is cared by others, that is loved, then the same increase in happiness would have increased happiness in those that love him. So charity through a genuine love is not merely consequential, it's a utilitarianism that's involves sentimentality and the sociability of sympathy to experience what others experience, to simulate others' experience, whether first person or the simulation, because there's a difference between empathizing with others and otherwise, as psychopaths do. And this brings out power abuse, because for those that have a good will constituted by the moral competence, which entailed a better moral performance through having a better capacity to love and having the fellow feelings, because there are those that they understand, they experience others suffering, but the feeling that they have are inappropriate, unfitting, and wrong. So conquest in terms of a power relation, that's through agreement, because sometimes there are military on military competence that the land is conquered, but the people might agree to cooperate with those in power to run the land, instead of in contrast to an oppression that's through a pretended consent that's not in terms of running the place well, but in terms of a mere pursuit, an intrinsic pursuit of a wrongful power. So that indicates pure evil. So here's a summary. I came in from doing good and how people with different means do different goods. So how about increasing our means? But that's not only instrumental, because there's something intrinsically valuable about power. So power is measured by impact, but different people have different means. So it's relative to them that altruism is measured. So having said all that, with a better power doing better things, there are those that do things not for the consequences, but only to abuse power. Thank you very much.